Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wist. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. All right, hello, Lee Jones and Roger Williams. Tell me why horror audiences will enjoy The Feast.
I think horror audiences are going to enjoy The Feast because it certainly delivers in terms of the tension and the scares and the spilling of blood, which a lot of horror fans want to get from their horror films. But I also think they're going to get a lot from the themes and ideas that work in the film. There's a heck of a lot going on under the surface in terms of what this film is saying about modern society, its values, and the way that people can be dislocated from their histories and their cultures. So for all of those reasons, and I think strong performances and some beautiful photography are kind of all things that are going to draw people to this film.
All right, Lee, tell me about the shoot for this movie. What was that like?
The shoot was great. We had 18 days to shoot this movie, so it wasn't a long shoot, but I think the glory of the piece is that it's set in one location in a rather fabulous kind of contemporary designed house in the Welsh landscape, and it's a rather remarkable architectural entity. Let's put it that way. So it was a very manageable shoot. I mean, it was very happy. It sort of, interestingly, I think the film tries to subvert the cliche of what a Welsh horror film might look like. It's not set in an old stone built cottage. It is in this fabulous structure made of steel and glass and bricks. It looks like something out of, I don't know, it's sort of Japanese. It's a house designed by an architect called John Pawson, and it's sort of Japanese Scandi inspired. And secondly, it's not as you would expect of a horror film set in the winter or in the autumn. It's set by summer. So I mean, that was a problem because you kind of want to have a little bit of night in a horror film in order to create tension and atmosphere. But finding night in the middle of June and July is a little bit of it's a bit of a feat.
Okay, Roger, what was the first kernel of inspiration for the script?
First kernel of inspiration was, I guess, we decided we were going to make a horror film. We very much wanted it to belong to this corner of the world. So we started looking at some of those ancient Welsh stories as told in the Mabinogion, where quite strange and weird things happen. There are women made out of flowers and giants and people being transformed into animals. So that's where it started, and actually looking at how those different ideas might play in a horror film. But also that idea, which I thought was really interesting, was that idea of possession. And there's a fair amount of talk about Welsh witches and witchcraft, and that idea of blending the idea of a witch born from the earth. There were those ideas at play for me initially, anyway.
Okay, and walk me through writing the screenplay. Are you a big treatment guy? Do you do beat sheets? Tell me about that. You just write scenes?
I laugh because he hates treatments.
For me, treatments kind of kill the creative process. And you'll speak to a producer or you'll speak to an executive, and lots of them are about the treatment. And they'll make you, go and do your beat sheets and write your treatments, and then maybe 3 months later, once you've done 5 or 6 treatments, you start work on the script. By which point, most writers have lost their appetite for the project. So I was lucky enough on this project that I could just do my own thing, and a lot of that is just meditating on what the thing might be. It's watching a lot of other horror films, and then initially gathering a sense of what the film is in my head, And I use books. I use a lot of notebooks. I've got them all littering my desk here. And when I'm working on a project, there'll be a lot of note taking and a lot of scribbling, just fragments of dialogue which might come from any point in the project. And slowly I have this jigsaw of ideas and scenes. And at some point I'll start to put a more formal structure on that. But I never absolutely know which scene is going to come next. I like to feel that organically come to me as the right decision, rather than, oh, I've got to go there now. I've got to go to the kitchen because that's what I said in the document that I that I pitched to the producer 4 weeks ago. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, that's interesting. Lee, at what stage did you receive the screenplay? Was it a finished product, or was it some scenes you guys talked early on?
I mean, we've known each other for a while, and we've worked on some television projects in the past. So there's constant sort of dialogue going back and forth. But no, the script came fully formed actually, and it's not a million miles away from the film, from the first draft, to be honest. But that's the way that Roger works. I mean, with some writers, you go through draft after draft and gradually sort of refine it, whereas I think Roger's quite measured in the way that he works, and it sort of dropped into my inbox in, it was August 2018 actually. I was about to start another project and I read it and I thought, well, we could shoot this now, couldn't we? Mm-hmm. We waited sort of about 8 months and then shot it in June, July 2019.
Okay. So I would love both of you to comment on the Welsh language, because I personally felt like it made things scarier for this movie. Do you think it's a scary language?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's such a, for most people who probably haven't heard it before, it's such an unusual sounding language. It adds to the sense of the other, of the foreign, which is so important to the film. And we very much, because obviously Wales is a bilingual country, where the majority of people speak English, and Welsh speakers are in the minority. And it's very common for television and film to mix the two languages. Mm-hmm. And we made a conscious decision with this film that we wanted it to be entirely in Welsh to add to that sense of otherness, which I think you've absolutely picked up on in your earlier comment. So I do think that an English language version of this film would be quite different in terms of the atmosphere that it creates.
Yeah, most definitely. So what were some cinematic influences for the movie?
Wow. I mean, I'm not one of those directors who tends to sort of pinpoint movies as such. Mm-hmm. I'm a bit more of a magpie, I guess, in that I kind of course, I watched loads of films, and there are lots of different influences from films in there, but I tend to look further afield. So I looked at photography or architecture. My background's in sort of acting and theatre, so I kind of draw lots of influences. But in terms of the films that were buzzing around when we were discussing this, I think Under the Skin would be one by Jonathan Glazer.
Yeah,
just in terms of its restraint and visceral quality. Another influence on me would be Peter Strickland. I love the sort of weird theatricality of what he does. And I think that's part of our journey. It starts in a very naturalistic vein, and then as the family kind of implodes, the aesthetic structure of the piece kind of descends into sort of melodrama and then sort of theatrical horror. Who else? I guess, fantastic filmmakers like Lynn Ramsey, who doesn't necessarily work in the horror space, but I think what I love about all of those filmmakers that I've just mentioned is that they try and make an audience feel as well as think. There's a certain visceral quality to their visual storytelling, which I think is very attractive to me. So yeah, I mean, if I dare say there's a bit of all of those sort of people in me. Another one would be Ari Aster, of course, who Hereditary and Midsummer. I don't sort of follow one guru. I'm kind of a magpie.
Okay. So, Lee, what was the number one lesson from the shoot of this movie that you will take away from the experience?
The number one lesson is to keep it simple, I think. I think that's the key and of course that was provided by Roger in the script. I mean, it's a beguilingly simple setup. You have a family, they're hosting a feast, a waitress comes along to help them, and then all hell is let loose. So it's remarkably simple. So I would say that it's also in one location, of course, which is fabulous when you're we took 18 days to shoot it, so it's quite a short period of time, but it avoids, on a practical level, avoids kind of moving. But also I think a lot of the great plays of last century and the century before have a unity of time and space. They're set in one location. I think about Chekhov, and they're real sort of crucibles. They're pressure cookers of tension. So often I think the temptation is to write something that is epic and expansive and cuts from here to there and all over the place. When in fact, I think what you want in a film like this is this sort of pressure cooker environment where tension can build.
Definitely. Well, that's very interesting and hopefully helpful for other people. Roger, will you write differently after this project?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I spent a number of years very happily writing TV. And while I've written screenplays in the past, this is my first screenplay to be produced. And I find writing film quite liberating. Even though I'm always writing something for TV, I find myself being drawn now to a more cinematic way of thinking, and obviously I'm thinking about what the next cinema projects might be, and I've absolutely learned a heck of a lot from seeing this script being translated to the screen. And feel now like I want to go back into that horror realm again, with all that I've learned from seeing a script, being lucky enough to see a script being taken from the page to the screen, and implement all those lessons again. And the main thing for me really is having a clarity of idea, and understanding what the purpose of telling that story is, and being true to that.
Lee and Roger, thank you for your time. I really appreciate the conversation. Before I let you go, may you tell me your feelings about your movie being playing at South by Southwest?
Oh, I think South by is a great fit for the film. It's its independent spirit and its reputation for picking the best modern work that's out there. It's just hugely exciting, and we're honoured to have the film playing at the festival.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the coolest festivals there is, and our film is one of the coolest films there is. So it's a perfect marriage.
Congratulations, guys, and have a good day.
Thank you, Michael.